Hey everyone, it's the Cinemaswan here with a look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I saw last week and recorded an 8-minute review for, and then realized I said too much about the ending and had to refilm. So here we go again. I'll start with what was positive, because there's less of it, and then I'll tell you what I didn't like, without saying too much about it. So, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a 2-hour and 41 movie, is the 9th of Quentin Tarantino's films. He says he's going to retire after the 10th, so we'll have to see what that looks like. He also calls this his magnum opus, which means it's like his greatest work, the ultimate, like the greatest thing he's ever made. And I will say the acting in it is very well done, as is most of the directing. It is a movie that just walks along, and it's 2 hours and 41 minutes. And I really enjoyed the ending. For 2 hours and 10 minutes, I didn't enjoy it. I was bored and disinterested and didn't really care. But the last 30 minutes were very interesting and kept my attention. So the last 30 minutes made it worthwhile to have gone, even though I have no desire to watch the movie again or be subject to watching that movie again. It was so long. I sat through Endgame with no trouble at 3 hours long, and yet this one was like, okay, and what's the point of this scene? Why is this happening? So as you've seen, we're moving on to the negative. I liked the end. The acting was good. Those are my two positives. The movie itself was very slowly paced, which I don't generally mind as long as it's interesting. However, it wasn't, and I was bored and didn't care, and I didn't care for either of the characters that were the main characters. I was not concerned for them. I didn't want them to win. I wasn't rooting for them, especially not Brad Pitt's character. I was really not rooting for his character. Leonardo DiCaprio's character I rooted for a bit more. He seemed like just that washed up actor who was kind of a sad story, and I kind of felt like, oh, well, maybe he'll find his success. Look, a cat. However, it was at least 40 minutes too long. It dragged. It wasn't. So the way they handled Bruce Lee was probably the most offensive thing for me. He was an incredibly talented martial artist. That's how you say that. And he was, I don't know. He was gone too soon. I don't know him personally, never did. He died before I was born. I don't know what he was like, but they portrayed him as arrogant and stupid. And that was very insulting, especially since, as far as I can remember, he's the only person of color with a speaking line. Matter of fact, he's the only one I really remember seeing. And that in and of itself, there's a problem. In the 1930s, when people were very mistreated and nobody had rights, there were more speaking parts for people of color than in this movie that was made in 2019, about 1969. It just felt so wrong, and it didn't feel good. And I just felt icky about it. Furthermore, something I'm not sure if it's a positive or a negative depends on whether or not Quentin Tarantino did it intentionally or not, is the fact that I could almost always, well, maybe always, tell when it wasn't Brad Pitt, but was a stuntman instead. And I don't know if that was intentional because Brad Pitt was playing a stuntman, so kind of being obvious in the cuts. I mean, I see a lot of movies, so I would feel like any moviegoer who goes a lot and who knows what to look for would notice. This is insanely obvious when it comes to the fact that that is not Brad Pitt. It's not Brad Pitt when he's driving really fast. It's not Brad Pitt when he's fighting Bruce Lee. It's not, and there are just a lot of moments where I was like, that's not Brad Pitt. And I wonder if that was a creative, like, ooh, I'm doing this because I want people to kind of be paying attention and know because Brad Pitt's playing a stuntman, or if it was like, wow, that's just really badly done editing. I don't know. All I know is I noticed. So all in all, this movie, without talking about the ending, which was the only part I liked, this movie I just felt like it was a waste of time. I did speak to a friend of mine who is incredibly well versed in movies as well, and he loved it. It's his favorite Tarantino to date, and he's also a really big Stanley Kubrick fan, which I am not super. So maybe that will help you. If you like Kubrick, if you like Tarantino, if you like racism and some touch of misogyny and boring stories, biased, then maybe you'll like this movie. I didn't enjoy it. I will not be seeing it again. I think acting wise, it is like a 3.5, 4 feather film, but enjoyment wise, it's like 1.5 to 2 feathers. I have no desire ever to repeat that process unless it was just the last 30 minutes. So take that for what it's worth, and maybe even consider skipping it. You don't need to see it on the big screen. See it when it comes out on streaming, and you can watch it for your own self for free. But that is my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. And if you want to talk more in depth about that ending or about the film itself, then let's chat, just not in the comments, so that there are no spoilers, because I've worked really hard on not saying anything about the only part that I actually did like. So have a lovely day.